Nobody in particular says Bayog or sell. We cover Vegas odds against Georgia. I think we cover, and if the ball bounces our way, I'm going to honestly, the spread is what, 13 right now?
Let me check it real quick.
13 and a half, probably. It's
I
something
think
like that.
so.
I know
I
it's
think it's
been
just below 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's been anywhere, and it's been anywhere from 11 to like 14. Just under 14. So I'm not sure where it sits right now, but I'm gonna say Bayog. I don't think it's I think Clemson has a very good opportunity to make this not a complete blowout, and keeping it within 2 touchdowns is certainly not out of the realm of possibility, and I don't think it's not something that would be a massive undertaking, just because I do think Clemson will match up a lot better on the lines of scrimmage than they did the previous meeting. And I think from an offensive standpoint, you're in a better spot than you were in 2021. But it all depends, because Georgia is in a better standpoint offensively than they were in 2021, especially when that game was played, because Stetson Bennett wasn't even the starter then. So Carson Beck is an experienced and really talented quarterback, and one of the top guys for the draft. So you couple that, but I do think it's not out of the realm of possibility that Clemson can cover. But
yeah, I mean,
winning the game is going to be a much different story, and maybe it's a late score that gets you within 2 touchdowns. But
right, it very well could. It's a big line, 13 and a half. That's a lot of points. So I mean, there's definitely a world where Clemson keeps it closer than 13 and a half. That's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. But again, who knows? Would you put money on it right now? I don't know. That'd be up to you.
Yeah,
I'm not a gambling man, so.
But hey, I mean,
if you are, if you truly do believe in Clemson against Georgia, there's a lot of money to be made in this game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I might lay down a Clemson money line ticket to throw down a little. I mean, it can't
throw down a little bit of money that you're willing to lose, and if they shock the world and win, because that would shock the world if Clemson goes out week 1 and beats Georgia. Like the college football world would be floored. You could win some money there. So if you feel strongly about it, go ahead.
And Chase says, "Who else is excited for Monday?" Yeah, I'm certain I never said that sentence before in my life, but
we finally got a reason to look forward to a Monday.
Yeah.
Said no one ever.
Yeah. But I do think he's in reference to landing Cortez Mills and Watts, who make their and Hardy Watts, who make their decisions on Monday. He asked, "Do you think we land both of them?" Both of them, I'm gonna say no, but I do think I think it's more likely you land neither than both. I'll say that, but I don't think you're completely out of it for either one of them either.
Hopefully, we can get the split decision and at least get some good news and some bad news at the same.
I think you should be okay if you get one of the two.
Yeah.
And if you get both, that's perfect. But if you land one, it'd be ideal to at least land one.
Yeah. Probably more likely to land Mills than Watts, but who knows?
For sure.
Watch, just because I said that, it's going to be the opposite.
Yeah. Could you? Yeah. I mean,
I'll be okay with that though.
Knowing, recruiting is a funny game, and especially nowadays, it's
Who knows, man? Anything could happen.
Jay says it's August 31st. Clemson is down 20 to 14th in the fourth. which side of the offensive line are you running? Are we on the goal line or
goal line?
It really doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't matter to answer this question. I think it's the right side very easily. Right now,
is it
for sure
down?
Yeah, who knows? But I have a lot more confidence in the right side of the line. I mean, especially in the run game. Especially in the run game. We're talking run game. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Walker Parks and Blake Miller are two bodies that move people. And if from a center standpoint, you have a lot of help. Like whether it's Harris Sewell or Ryan Linthicum, you just kind of have to not get completely destroyed. And I think you have a good chance to have a successful run play. Now I do. Now, obviously, I think that's just in a vacuum because you are facing. We're talking August 31st, so that's you're playing Georgia. So, it depends on who's lined up on their side of the ball as well, from a defensive standpoint. But I think just in a vacuum, I'd have to go the right side. Blake Miller and Walker Parks are the most physical run blockers on the team. So they're going to move. They're going to move bodies. So pass protection. Okay, we might have to have a different conversation, but run game certainly is very much. It's very obviously the right side.
Yeah, I would agree. No question about it.
Intelligent Savage 629 says, "Who's the running back coming in as a change of pace after Phil Maffa?" I mean, there's a couple of guys in line there. We've talked about him. Jay Haynes, I think, is the obvious one from a change of pace standpoint, as far as giving you a different style. But of course, you also have Keith Adams, Keith Adams Jr., and they're going to want to give him the ball, to spell Maffa at times, because he does give a similar physical, downhill kind of one cut style. But I do think if you're trying to, give the defense a different look, I think it's Jay Haynes, obviously right now. Hustler Inc. says Cade has to be Trevor Lawrence and the offensive line has to be Michigan's in order to beat Georgia. I wouldn't go that far. But they certainly have to be very, very good. Like, you can't have, you certainly can't have the Wake Forest version of Cade.
Dang, bro, we got to be perfect to beat Georgia.
Yeah, we got
to get Trevor Lawrence back, and then we got to get Michigan's O-line.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I don't think this Georgia team is unbeatable. That's not. I mean, they had their flaws last season. I do think some of them will be corrected, but I don't think they're all gone. They still have some question marks from a secondary standpoint. I think they're still vulnerable there. Not that they're untalented, but a lot of young guys and that haven't necessarily played all that well. And so I don't think they're super scary on the interior. Like, they've got really good players on the interior, but they don't have Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt, and like that's not the defensive line. I'm sorry, the interior defensive line that Clemson's going to be facing. And outside, Michael Williams is an absolute freak. Like, that's no question. And I think their linebackers will be pretty good. Like, it's a really good. It's going to be a top 10 defense. So, like, I'm saying this all relative, but I don't think they are I don't think they're an unbeatable, like, no weaknesses. Like, where you need to have a Trevor Lawrence and a Trevor Lawrence and a Michigan's offensive line to beat Georgia, because that wasn't the case last season. I mean, Alabama did. Jalen Milroe was far from Trevor Lawrence, and Alabama's offensive line last year was far from Michigan's. But
there's obviously got to be a lot of improvement for Clemson to compete, specifically on the offensive side of the ball with this Georgia defense. But I don't know if we have to have Trevor Lawrence back there.
Yeah, it's not that dire.
But we definitely need vast improvement.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it shakes out.
And I think if the offense has the potential, so it's like if they live up to that potential, then they can certainly move the ball and threaten Georgia offensively. But it's a matter of especially being explosive and making Georgia respect a downfield passing game.
That's the key.
Like I said, I think you have the pieces to do that, but do you have the quarterback play? Like, or is Cade going to be able to see that, see those throws when they're there and hit them and be on time?
Is the offensive line going to hold up?
Right.
There's a lot of factors that are going to go into it.
But that, I think that, and that's one of the biggest things that, defenses have been able to do with Clemson, where they were able to do with Clemson last year, and it started from very week one. I mean, Duke played quarters like that, basically that entire game, and just was like, okay, we don't think you can. It's like we're going to keep everything in front of us because we don't think you're going to be able to sustain drive after drive after drive.
And unfortunately,
we're not going to give you the opportunity to hit big plays.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, they were right because we turned the ball over time after time and shot
and that was the blueprint for every single basically every defense they played. From there on out, that's
it was the whole blueprint last year was make Clemson go on methodical drives and wait for the mistake to happen.
Yep.
And as we know, it happened all year because we didn't go a single game without a turnover.
Really, what's funny is really the only team that didn't do that to start was Florida State. That was one of the weirdest things because like Florida State was they blitzed a ton in that game, a lot more than a lot of other teams did. Like it was like they wanted Clemson to make force Clemson to force the mistakes instead of letting Clemson spit up all over themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was kind of obviously they won the game, so it worked out. But I thought their game plan was a little bit different, and they kind of switched and gave them different looks in that second half. But I did not expect them to be as aggressive as they were because Clemson was able to hit some plays. Tyler Brown had multiple big catches down the field, and Clemson was very, very efficient, especially in that first half, and they were finishing drives was really the biggest thing. But the most of the year it was just kind of we don't really we're not even going to let you try to hit big plays, and we're gonna we're gonna let you spit up all over yourselves and make the mistakes. So that's the thing that has to change for Clemson this year is you got to at least make a team respect your downfield passing game because once that happens, that's when everything else opens up because they have to be mindful of that at all times. And teams didn't have to do that. So we don't think you're good enough from a quarterback standpoint. We don't think your receivers are going to get open, and we don't think your offensive line is going to hold up for your receivers to get open. So we're just going to. That's what they did. Wake Forest was getting pressure with 3 guys at times. Like that was
so frustrating.
So frustrating, man. That tape was disgusting. That was like the worst. That was worse than Duke. Like from just my eyes, like especially going back and watching it and just seeing like that was probably the worst game the offensive line played all year. They had no business. There was no reason why they allowed as much pressure as they did because Wake Forest was not. They were not doing anything special. As far as looks, like they just were sitting back in quarters and they were just winning up front.